Good morning, Coach Kelly here, and today I have a very special guest, Mike Doviak. Mike and I have known each other, for over 20 years, bound together by our love of golf and fitness, and we've just, various seasons of life. We've just been around each other for a long time. I've invited Mike on my corporate wellness show today to learn more about what he does in the healthcare industry and how that might add value to you. And so Mike has been in healthcare sales and marketing for 29 years, emphasizing home healthcare. Before that, he was in printing sales, consumer goods service or consumer goods sales promotion manager, and commercial design production. I just completely destroyed that. He's done a lot. But Mike, how did you get started? Because I know healthcare is predominantly what you've done. How did you get started in the healthcare industry?
It was just dumb luck, actually. I had a cousin. I was living in Connecticut at the time in the early 90s, from the mid 80s to early 90s, and was in printing sales and went through some personal situation, was looking to make a change. And I had a cousin living here in Dallas that actually was in the durable medical equipment, or DME, which is medical supplies industry. And he had started a small home healthcare company and didn't really know too much about the business. He funded it, but he didn't know too much about driving it or the sales side of it. So I decided to come down and give it a go, and so I've been in it ever since. So that was in '94. So it's coming up on almost 30 years. So
when did you move to Dallas?
I moved in. I came in '94. I had been here prior to, and then went back to Connecticut for 10 years. And then I came in '94, and I've been here since. And that's about when so you and I are coming up on 30 years rather than just a little over 20.
See, I moved to Dallas in December of '93 and have pretty much been here ever since. And so we have been around each other for a long time.
Yeah.
So give me a favorite client story with regard to what you're doing right now. And I say, tell us exactly what you're doing right now, and then I'll ask that question, because I know you've been in healthcare, for the most part. But what are you doing now?
So I'm still in, I call it frontline sales, meaning that I'm the person that drives the referrals into my agency. The referrals come from social workers. They come from offices, either the nurses or the medical assistants. They can come from the hospital. I prefer the doctor's offices, being the primary care physician or a specialist. Simply because you can develop relationships with the people that have been taking care of somebody for a long time. Sometimes not so long, but sometimes, their whole life. And so it's a business of trust. So if they trust that I know what I'm talking about and that I'm going to take good care of their patients, then they'll refer them to us. It's kind of tricky because the people that are referring to us aren't actually paying for it. It's paid through their Medicare or another insurance. So they're still called the shots, but the funding comes from another source.
So give me a thumbnail sketch. What's a day in a life look like for you?
So if it's twofold. One is managing existing accounts, which would be calling on a rehab or a doctor's office that maybe we do monthly, weekly work together. And so I always say, if you're not loving your customers, somebody else is. So you always stay on top of the people that have been good to you, and that I don't always want to show up just because they sent me a referral. I want to be there because I become part of their team, and you develop relationships with these people. I've gone to christenings and weddings and funerals and all that for the families of the people that I work with. So it was not right away, but it didn't take me long to figure out that circle of your influence and the circle of people that you're with isn't infinite. It's actually fairly close, like you and I. So I said, well, we instead of trading up for better people to be around, let's be better to the people we are around.
Amen.
So that's kind of how I do it. Now, the other side of that is new business development, which is really my love. I love managing an account, but there is nothing more rewarding than meeting somebody for the first time, connecting on some level, and then within short period of time, maybe it takes a little longer for some situations, but not normally for me, to start developing a relationship and getting referrals. So it is absolutely thrilling to develop new business, and that's what I love to do.
I've seen you
So
make connections in the gym over and over and over.
yeah,
You are very
yeah.
good at it.
And I was a very shy person when I was growing up, and about when I graduated high school, I realized how isolating and lonely being shy was. And people that knew me back in high school would never believe that I've made my career out of sales, because you wouldn't think that I would be the kind of person that would be that outgoing. But it's more than just I'm really not an outgoing person. It's just a wonderful dynamic when it happens. And so there's not a day that goes by that I'm not thrilled with meeting somebody new. So.
Well, so give me a favorite client story.
Well, I would say I have plenty of them. My favorite thing to do is to meet somebody. Let's say, oh shoot, I could pick anything. Some of the clients I don't know, because I do a lot through the referral sources, and so I don't do a lot of direct clients of the patient per se. But there was one not too long ago. I'm one of those reps that if I get a referral and we can't get them on the phone, people are barraged with phone calls today, and a lot of seniors don't answer the phone. They just don't. They won't answer the phone. They won't answer the door, which makes it very difficult in our business because we go to the home. So if they're afraid to open up the door or answer the phone, we can't figure out how to take care of them. So I actually go to their homes and I knock on the door and I continue to try to connect with them. There was a time I was we had a patient out in Arlington, and we couldn't get a hold of her or her son. So I went out it was a gated community. And so I had to wait for somebody to pull out so I could pull in. I knocked on the door and I called and I knocked on the door, and I thought I heard something inside. I left my card. There was a little clip outside their door. Some of the apartments have those little clips, bull clip, I think they're called. And anyway, and before you know it, I saw this fellow walking toward me in the parking lot, and I said, "Are you connected with apartment so and so?" And he said, "Yes, I'm her son." And she had called the son. He had lived in the same complex. And she opened the door and was so adorable and so charming and so sweet, but from Iran originally. So she
Really?
had a heavy accent and was fearful. And her son, and we went up, and I didn't want to leave. She was so charming and showed me pictures of herself when she was a young woman, and she looked like Maria Callas, excuse me, Callas,
Really?
and was beautiful. Looked more Greek, like that Greek, beautiful woman. Anyway, but if I hadn't gone and knocked on her door and waited and then engaged with her son and gone back and done, we wouldn't be taking care of her, and she may end up in rehab or in the nursing home, because our services are really designed for therapy and nursing to try to help people remain independent. And but I feel that if it was my mom or if it was a neighbor, I would want somebody to try that hard to make sure that I got the care that they deserved. And so that's kind of a classic. You're in a business of helping people even when they don't want to be helped, or they don't want to change things, and they don't want to answer the door, and they don't want to answer your emails and stuff like that. So I think that you have to be a little gritty and a little tenacious in a nice way, so you don't alienate people. But I would say that that was very, let's put it this way. I was glowing when I went out that gate, because I knew that I had done something really good for her and worked out great. So we were able to take care of her. So
Good deal.
anyway,
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you face with what you're doing right now?
that's
In
an
your industry.
easy answer, and it has nothing to do with people, because the market's huge and people are in need. It has to do with the funding source, which is insurance. People think that if they get insurance, they're able to get all kinds of services. You might be able to get acute services, meaning hospitalization. Say you had an accident or you have a need for surgery. That's a kind of a no-brainer. That's typically covered. How long you're able to stay in the hospital is dependent on your insurance. I always tell people in rehab, they say, when do you think I'm going to get out? I said, how long does your insurance last? So, the easy answer is talk to the business office manager for any rehab or any hospital, and they'll tell you how many days that they're allowed to bill for you. And that is exactly how many days you're going to be in there. Not a day late, not a day before. There are some insurances that are out there that people think, wow, it's a very affordable and this is great. Can't even take care of them. We have to be a provider for them. And if they don't allow you to be a provider, then you can't take care of them. So it's really the payer source has been the big challenge, continues to be the big challenge for us. Medicare for my business is the best. With reduced reimbursements and cuts coming, it still allows us to do the most good. Meaning frequencies. How often can we go to their home? Some of the insurances allow you have to almost beg for, we need to go back out. We have to get an authorization or else we can't get paid. So it's a very cumbersome thing. And a lot of people don't understand it. And a lot of referral sources don't understand it. They feel that if they can accept it and they're able to bill for it, why can't we?
Right.
And that becomes a challenge.
Okay, so on a positive note, what makes you feel inspired about what you do?
Well, the obvious is that I'm taking care of people, that I'm ultimately helping people, but I'm not a caregiver. So what I'm inspired to do is, and I'm inspired by them, are the young people that are in the business, that when I go and I call on an office, they're 21, 22, 20, 24. They're young people that are at the front desk or they're taking care of administrative things, and my world revolves around them. But I'm there to, in a way, kind of evangelize what I do. And I have daughters their age, so it's easy for me to relate to them, even though I'm an older guy. In a way, I'm very proud of them because they don't miss a day. They're in there, they're taking care of people. And when I give them respect and I follow through and I communicate, they respond beautifully, and that's how I build a relationship with them. So that is very uplifting for me to see the young folks that are in the business and to connect with them and help them in some way.
Okay. So as a fitness professional, people hire me to help them with their physical training, their nutrition. But one of the biggest challenges I see with that is people reaching a point that they think that they can do it on their own, that they don't need my help anymore. So does that relate at all to what you do? I mean, a challenge that you face of people thinking they can do maybe without your service? Or is that
Well,
not relevant?
yeah, not the referral sources. The patients for sure are like that. Some, in fact, not a month goes by that somebody who has had a problem, a serious problem, gets out of rehab. They want them to have home health to make sure that they're safe, because the first 2 weeks that somebody goes home is typically the most challenging, because they're susceptible to a fall. We're talking about geriatrics, so we're not talking about able bodied typically. There are times when they will not accept additional services. First of all, they're tired of being around medical professionals. They don't want to see a nurse anymore. They want to just go home. So now they're home and they think, well, I'm home, so I'm back to normal, which they're not quite ready to be normal yet. The only reason why they're home is because the billing reason. But they could very much need at least somebody popping in once a week, if not a couple times a week, just to lay eyes on them and make sure they're okay. And in spite of the need for it, and they know, well, I know my family have said that I need help, but or they'll say, you know what, I've taken care of my wife for 45 years. I don't really need help. I've done it this long. I think I can keep going. And then something catastrophic happens. And so somebody once told me, we had a woman, she was in and out of rehab. I couldn't figure out why she kept falling. She was chair-bound. She kept falling. She was a nurse by trade. Kept falling. Turns out she was an alcoholic, but nobody really knew that. But she kept getting, she'd go home, she'd get just wasted, and she would fall out and end up on the floor, and somebody find her. And then, so I did everything I could. I talked to the family. They've had enough of her. They've been round and round, and they were also physicians. And so I called Adult Protective Services to see if there was something they could do. And they said, well, with children, we can help. With adults, it's not illegal to do foolish things. They said it differently. And but there's no law against you not doing something even in your own best interest. And so that's a challenge for people to awaken. There are a lot of people that we take care of that have behavioral issues. That's why they're in the place that they're in the first place. And so you're not just trying to help them with their health. It's from the neck up. So that neck up is the hard part.
Mike, I see that so much with people, that when people struggle with their weight in particular, many times there's something going on. It all starts here.
Right.
The struggle starts there. And so it's mind, body, soul is my approach in trying to help people, because it's not just the simple logic of, logically, the grilled salmon and steamed veggies is better than the cheeseburger and fries. But last time I checked, the burger business is doing pretty good. People struggle with managing their emotions. And so, okay, I'm going to change gears on you a little bit.
All right.
What are your thoughts on personal development, and how has that contributed to your success over the years?
Well, about 1983. So I'll go back because I thought about this, and I was kind of floating, and I read a book, and you know this book.
Have it right over there.
The reason why, and it kind of changed my life in a way. I'm not saying that I am the perfect student for the grow rich part, but the think part was really amazing, because I was able to. I realized that I could change whatever I wanted to change, and that I was responsible for that change, and that was the beginning of me being really excited about reading that sort of thing. I didn't know what self-awareness was, or self-improvement. I had no idea what that whole thing was. I came from a very blue-collar, back east kind of negative environment that didn't really embrace that thought process, and I had no idea what that was. And so when I started reading, I was very excited about it, and I literally was able to get jobs that I never would have previously, because I didn't let my fears stop me. So that's what I think it is that you're only limited by your fears and yourself, so. Anyway, sometimes you have to think outside of that.
I got my first copy of Think and Grow Rich back in the 90s, and I still have that original copy. One of my clients gave me an updated version. I think it was just past Christmas, and that's been a good read, because the original copy, Napoleon wrote that book 100 years ago, literally.
Right. Uh-huh.
But the wisdom, and I don't mind the examples that he uses because they're obviously very out of date. But this new edition, it's using modern, like a Jeff Bezos or just modern companies, modern leaders, as opposed to the examples that were in the original book. But still,
Right.
the original book is timeless. I mean, it is good. I'm going to send you. I don't know where I got it. I've had this for years. It is a daily email from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Obviously, Napoleon's been gone now for a while, but it's a daily email. There's a couple of quotes and just a short, like a little daily devotional, but it's from
Yeah.
him. And it's just ongoing. And it's just a good little daily reminder. I will forward that to you. So what is your favorite book? And then what is your favorite movie?
Well, I have to admit I'm more of a online researcher than I am a book. But the last two books I've read is it's an interesting book. Um,
Okay.
and Red Notice, and my cousin suggested it, and it's espionage intrigue. Basically, he's a fella from the U.S. that goes overseas and gets in the investment world, but he starts getting in the investment world with the underbelly of the Russian and Europe, Eastern Europe, and it's really riveting. You don't have to be a finance person to understand the human drama of it, but it's true story, and it's amazing. And then, of course,
Okay.
this is I love humor. I mean, I think that's a big part of my, as my Jewish comedians would say, my shtick is humor. I grew up on Ed Sullivan. Every Sunday night, everybody my age and older and younger watched Ed Sullivan, and these Jewish comedians were on. But Mel Brooks is a genius. But what's really lost in his in the kind of work that he does is how bright he is and how strong he is. He's really an amazing fella, and has done some amazing work. We just see the tip of the iceberg, but his background is quite rich.
Did he do Young Frankenstein?
Yes, he did.
That's one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah, yeah. That really is. And So as far as favorite movies, I have a tendency to like a little some of the action movies that aren't so predictable. Although you know how it's going to end, you need to have a superhero. But I like the Equalizer
Okay.
trilogy. Now the third one's coming out this spring. Denzel Washington, I think it's one of his best roles. I like that he has had been involved in something that he's not necessarily proud of, but he's spent the rest of his life having a quiet life, but also trying to right some injustices that are out there, and kind of a la the Charles Bronson movies from the 80s when it was like payback time,
Right.
and but Denzel has got a different way of going about it, and he's you know, I love the idea of being more quiet. I'm not a quiet person in terms of my brain and being able to bring it all down. And he's meditative, and I like that. So he's a kind of a superhero to me.
He is a gifted actor. I've liked pretty much everything I've ever seen him do. So, all right. How did you get your start with lifting weights?
Well, of course, when I was a kid, everybody lifted weights. I was very small. I was really light. It was embarrassing how weak I was. But I graduated school in 72, high school. By the way, I still have my high school long jump record from my high school,
Do you really?
and my 220, the
Wow.
220. They changed it to meters, so they retired the 220, so that can't be beaten. Um, but back in my probably my the I even in college when I competed 2 years, so I had to lift during that comp, and then I get a little stronger and a little faster. And then I was at UTA for a couple of years running track, and then I got hurt, and then but I continued to lift weights in the gym. I changed schools and went to Virginia, and I would still work out. And then I continued all the way through my 20s. I remember I was about 27 and lifting in a, pretty hardcore one-off gym. And the guys would say, gosh, 27, you don't look 27. You look like you're 22, And so, but I wasn't really big. I was still, and not particularly strong, but just fit. And so throughout the 70s and 80s, I still worked out, and it became kind of a therapy for me and also a social thing. Not too chatty, but I love the camaraderie in the gym. I like there's not a lot of people you can come across that have and I mean this in a polite and loving way, but an obsessive compulsive behavior. You don't see the same people over and over and over and over and over again unless there's something else driving them besides just working out.
Right.
There's other things going on, whether it's meeting the same people, whether it's having a feeling of fulfillment. There's something else going. So I kept it up throughout, and even you and I, you trained me for some. I wanted to get competitive again in track, and that's when you and I were working out in the early mornings. And what I found out about working out, or not working out, but trying to be a competitive athlete at an older age, is that you have to look at exercise as almost physical therapy. Nothing's quite wrong yet, but you don't know it, because all you have to do is get out there on the track and really go after it, and it will crop up that it wasn't exercised enough. So there's working out, there's getting fit, and then there's getting competitive fit, and that's three different categories altogether. So it's very difficult, but I think today's technology, today's mineral supplements, vitamins, the science of exercise, and is amazing. I mean, it just wasn't there back in the 70s. I mean, we had limited choices on nutrition. They thought steak before competing was the thing to do. We had limited equipment. We had limited footwear. We had limited everything. You just basically did it on pure God-given, natural talent, and that was it. Now you went out and you practiced some, but I competed in 6 events every track meet. So in high school, so I really didn't have a specialty. I had to jump and I had to sprint. And I'd have done 8 if they allowed me, but that 6 was the max. So that's kind of how I started. Now, if you want me to go recent history, my daughter had, and I was trying to think about why I was working out so hard and heavy. It was a way to get some energy and some of the things that were going on. My daughter had a brain issue. It was called encephalitis, and we didn't know what it was. And so, and she's come through great, but there was from October to about February, I was still in the gym every day after I would see her in the hospital. We didn't really know how she was going to turn out. And so I was strong as could be. I'd see her once or twice a day, but I would go to the gym, and I started lifting heavier, and I started getting stronger, and I started getting bigger. I did a lot of reading about fitness after 50, and one of the biggest problems with people past 50 is they don't work out hard enough. Is that they really don't go get it. They don't understand that it's all about the struggle. I mean, there is nothing. That's what I love about weightlifting, is that I finally figured out, and I tell this to the young fellas. I said, it's about the struggle. Don't just lift what you're sure you can lift. Push yourself, because that's about life. Life's about the struggle. If you're not pushing, you're not growing. And so I went from, lifting, and I'm 68. I'll be 69 in November. I was doing maybe say 2.25 on the bench to 285. I was doing incline press. I got up to 265. And those numbers are big numbers for just the pedestrian, gym guy. I mean, you're probably only 10% of the people that are that strong or heavier or stronger. And so it wasn't for that. It was just that I was just putting so much into it that I was pushing myself. Now, recently, I realized that my joints and my tendons didn't like that so much. So I've backed off the heavyweight, and I've gone to more of a balance of 30 to 45 minutes on aerobic, and then I work out. And I've reduced my weight from, say, reps of 2.25 to 185. And so I've kind of changed my workout a little bit and my tendons feel good, my elbows feel good, and I started playing golf again. So I think my swing is going to be better. So
Good for you.
yeah.
Oh, Mike, you are a rare case to me. And I've used this example a lot when I'm talking to people in the gym that, and it's the need of doing strength training as we age, because after about the age of 30, if you're not doing strength training, and I'm not talking about trying to be, He-Man, but if you're just not doing basic strength training, on average, after 30, you're going to lose about 5 pounds of muscle mass every 10 years. When you go from 30 to 80, that's 50 years, that's 25 pounds. That's why your typical 80-year-old is they're just small because they've been losing muscle mass for the last 50 years, because most 80-year-olds have not been lifting weights. Now, I know you're not there yet, but that's a little ways down the road. But
Yeah.
still, I'll be very eager to see, because you're a little older than I am, but where I will be when I'm your age, where you will be. I'm really eager to see how I'm able to maintain, and I see how well you're maintaining at your age. I mean, you are light years beyond my two dads comparatively, and you're roughly the span. You're just a tad younger than they are, but not much. But
Right.
you're so far beyond where they are because you've been taking care of yourself all these years. And so I'm so proud of what you're doing. Just keep going, take what your body gives you and keep going.
Yeah, I have, the research that I've been doing on anti-aging and the longevity has showed that even without moderating your diet tremendously, longevity is based on muscle mass, not on how thin you are. You could be thin and not have any muscle, and you're going to have issues. You're going to have problems. So the muscle is really important. So obviously, you want to be able to diet properly too. I told you earlier that sugar, sugar's in everything. It's even in vitamin supplements. Sugar. I couldn't believe it. Raisin has 25 grams of sugar in raisins. I missed that boat. I should have gotten in the sugar cartel or the sugar lobby, because the sugar lobby is got to be gigantic. They must have the FDA in their back pocket, because it's not really a food. It's a terrible thing for your body to metabolize. It doesn't. It's really bad for you. So spiking your insulin, then it makes it more difficult to lose weight. I mean, the research is out there now, and that's the challenge. So I anything worth doing is worth overdoing for me. So I can't just reduce it. I have to try to eliminate it. If I eliminate it, it's easier for me to manage it. If I'm not saying I'm perfect, but there'll be days when we made homemade pizza with vegan crust this weekend. I couldn't avoid it, but I'm right back to black coffee and nothing in it, because even the sugar replacements are not good for you. It's terrible. I appreciate what you're saying. Again, like getting into home health sales, it was dumb luck that I just stayed with the working out. I don't know exactly. It just changed. There were different reasons for different areas of my life why I kept doing it. But one of the things is that it was a constant positive thing. And I think you always need to have, and I think it gets back to that Think and Grow Rich. If you do something positive, even if you don't feel like it, it comes back, you start feeling better. So I think you have to do positive things in your life. And for sure, working out and lifting weights is been a real big benefit. And it's always nice to set goals. So I'm changing, you change why you're doing it. But okay, so I wanted to hit 275 incline. I wanted to do 315 bench. I didn't hit those goals, but I got pretty close. And the same way with this, I realized, man, I've got 3/4 of my closet. I can't fit in any clothes because I gotten too big, not heavy, but just big, my shoulders. So now I've reduced, and now I'm being, hey, where'd you get that shirt? I said, well, my closet. It's been there for about 2 years. So anyway,
I'm proud of you. I'm proud
yeah,
of
thanks.
you. So what's the best compliment you've ever received?
I would say on the job, I would say the best compliment is that a rehab recently, and I have several, but recently they said we want to send you a referral because you're the kind of person that this family needs to talk to. And so to look at sending me business not based on our care, but based on me, being able to walk the family through whatever sometimes they've never experienced this before, to me is a professionally a really big compliment, because yeah, I've been able to make a difference, not just our services. So that's a big one. Is personally, I think it's always nice for people to be shocked. If I say, how old do you think I am? And, I may look, to me, I look like an old guy, but they'll say, I don't know, because I'm fit. They'll look at my structure more than my face. And they'll say, I don't know, 45, 48, something like that.
That's
So
compliment.
yeah, it's about 20 years younger than I am. I'll be 69, I'll be 70 next year. And so I don't really see any change. I think my new workout regimen will keep me going for quite a while now. I don't think going heavier is just not the way to go for me.
Well, and you said that before, and I was just going to add, heavy is a relative term,
Right.
and there's a lot of information to back up the fact that you can maintain strength and size working with higher reps. 10, 15, 20, 25 reps, it's not nearly as hard on your joints as sets of 5. Not to say that you were doing that, but I mean, just
Oh, I was.
higher reps, still pushing yourself. But I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to lift as heavy with the higher reps. And, there's no reason why you can't maintain size and strength with higher reps, and it's just easier on your joints.
Right.
So what's the best advice that you've ever received?
That I ever received. I'm not sure about that. Maybe never give up. I think being tenacious and being consistent is probably the best thing. I think you just have to, you can't let, like golf, man, you can't quit after, if you hit some bad shots, because you live for another day. And so just don't give up. I think that's part of it.
So I've been following Andy Andrews is a New York Times bestselling author multiple times over. He got his start as a comedian back at the first of his career, and that transitioned to more keynote speaking and then being an author. He's done consulting with the government, with the military. I mean, he's just done all kinds of things. But my first wife, I mean, this was back in the early 2000s. She went to a real estate training function out in California, and Andy was the guest speaker. And I was so envious of her because I didn't get to meet the guy, because I've never met him. And I've seen him speak before, but live, but I've never met him. And she knew how much I liked him. And so she got one of his little audio, programs, and she got him to autograph it. And on the inside jacket, he wrote one word, exclamation point, and then his name. Guess what that one word was? Starts with a P. You just said it. Persist.
Persist.
Persist. That is the master word.
Yeah.
You have to take action initially, and then you have to hang in there. So, um, if you could have dinner with three people from the past or the present or any combination thereof, I know it's kind of interesting question. Who would they be?
One would be my dearly departed grandfather,
Okay.
Melville Salmon was his name. He had a huge influence in my life. He was, um, and he wasn't only a smart guy and a loving guy, but he had something I never had in my life at my home, and that was um, uh, he was always supportive no matter what. I mean, he was the most supportive. You're the hardest working guy. He was amazing, and we loved to be with him, to fish with him, that kind of. So my grandfather would be somebody for sure. Um, I think that my mom had a big influence in my life. So I guess maybe I hate to just talk about my family, but yeah.
All right.
And and a guy recently that I've come across that I really would wish that I had him as a friend, and that's this Peter Attia, Dr. Attia, that is on anti-aging and longevity. He's an amazing fellow. I've listened to him a lot, and um, he's not perfect, and he talks about that. He has a book out, and he's talks about how the first 16 chapters of the book were about the patient, and the 17th chapter was him as the patient. And it's about how he, that same drive that allows us to be in the gym and work hard, but it's also that same drive that um, doesn't allow us to enjoy a lot of it too. We push a little too hard and a little too hard on ourselves, and we're not. We should be more loving towards ourselves than we are, and we do that outwardly, but we don't do it inwardly. So he talks a lot about that. So I think those are my mom, my grandfather, who is her father, and Dr. Peter Attia would be a good threesome.
So two more questions. So what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Uh, I would say my 20-year-old self would be to plan better, to have a better plan. Similarly to what you do, and we haven't talked about this, but I think having a coach that and in all areas is about planning, is about implementing, is about reassessing, is about um, uh, then replanning and then implementing again. I think that if I had been a better planner in my 20s, I may not be pounding the pavement in my 60s, but I love what I'm doing, so I'm very fortunate. But I really think that a better planner in my 20s would not only help you in your health, but also that's why I think training is indicative. If everybody trained like they worked out, like you put them on a program, if you did that with your career, same exact fundamental things that you do with somebody, and as detailed as you are with collecting data, even if they allow you to do it, but if they do a little bit, it really is very helpful in your entire life. That's why I think trainers are more than just trainers. You're really a life coach. So
Um, any final thoughts or words of wisdom?
um yeah. Zig Ziglar once said, when asked about, they said, Zig, this motivation stuff is so temporary. What do you say to that? He said, well, I think brushing your teeth is temporary too, but I really think you should do it every day. And so I think that before you blast out of the house, you have to take on the day and just decide that it's going to be a good day and something good's going to happen and you're going to do something good for somebody. And I literally do that every day. Every day I look for opportunities to meet new people. And if I meet somebody that's really interesting, I call them my angel. I said, you know what? I'm always looking for a new angel every day, and you're it. So that's what I'd like to close with is that do something good for somebody.
That's a cool, I mean, something that I believe belief and expectation are powerful.
Right.
We tend to get what we expect, and definitely our beliefs drive what we do every day. But if you're on the lookout to find your angel every day, I bet you find your angel pretty much every day.
Every day. And, and I say this in the gym. I love the gym I'm in because it's a different demographic than I'm typically around. But whether somebody is a bricklayer or whether they own a corporation, you typically get what you give. And that's how I look at it. So not always, I mean, but that I'll still live with that for that 2 or 3% that doesn't come back that way. That's okay. That's on them.
So
So
I think one of the wisest things I ever heard from, have you ever heard of Jeffrey Gitomer? He's an author, he's a speaker. I've been following him since at least the early 2000s. I mean, he's multiple New York Times best-selling books, but he said, whenever you give, to give with no expectation of anything in return. And I think part of that is giving with a proper spirit, just like the Bible asks us to tithe with a proper spirit. But when you're giving of yourself to someone else, give with a proper spirit. But if you always give with no expectation of anything in return, you're not setting yourself up for any disappointment. You're just doing it because it's something that you want to do. It's the right thing to do, and because you want to do. And then if you get blessed in return, that's just like the icing on the cake. But just to give with just an open-ended, free spirit, I think that's a good way to live. Well, Mike, you are a good man. I appreciate your time today. I really do appreciate it. It was good to catch up with you.
thanks, Kelly. I thank you for the invitation, and be looking forward to seeing some of the other podcasts as well.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.